What's up, guys? We want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Q&A with Coach Trey. I'm Brandon, and this is Coach Trey. And we are rocking and rolling inside of our office today, and we are trying to stream this live, but there's a great chance that it won't work because our internet's super slow. But if you guys will listen to the replay, that does not matter to you. What matters to you is if you're going to get some awesome running questions answered, and you're going to get some of the best advice you've ever heard. And that is going to happen.
I love that faith.
Trey, we usually do these without you knowing what the questions are.
Yep.
So all impromptu.
Yep.
And so we'll see how it goes today with our very first question, and we're gonna dive in here in a second. But before we do that, as always, I want to let you guys know about our summer running challenge. And you guys can check that out over at connectrunclub.com/summer challenge. And you guys can join up with us if you're running already. It's a great way to win some free stuff like gift cards to Amazon, as well as free running shoes. And you guys can get more information about that at connectrunclub.com/summer challenge. Now, how has your running been so far this summer?
I just ran.
That's good. Yeah,
it's hot out
there.
You're
kind of sweating right now.
Yeah, I've been trying to cool off. No, I'm making some progress.
That's
so
good.
we're getting there. It's a long, slow grind to get back, but I feel like we're making some progress.
Have there been any folks that have popped out to you on Strava? Like, have you followed anybody that surprised you?
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I've seen a couple recently, and if I'm not mistaken, our friend Gregory, he did, what was it, 46K for his 46th birthday or something like that. Did fun. I see that? He did that. That
sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, and then there's some others that are running some very, very quick times out there, a lot of mileage. So yeah, there's some folks doing some serious mileage out there, training for a lot of big races, it looks like. So, and then our friend, Doc to be used to,
yeah.
And then I've seen she's put together a lot of miles here recently. I think she's training, is it for a 50K or a 50 miler? I think
it's a 50 miler. Yeah, so, it's a good bit.
Yes, I've been keeping up with her a little bit. She's been posting a lot on the Facebook page, so I know she's getting in some runs too. So it's good to see everyone out there logging the miles. Though I know it definitely gets me excited. So
yeah, it's a great one. Well, we are going to dive into our very first question. And each week we pull our questions from the Facebook group. So if you guys want to get your questions answered, if you guys just go to connectrunclub.com/Facebook, I'll take you to a link. It's a private group. I will accept you in there if you don't look like you're a spam bot, which you're probably not if you're listening to this, and you can get your questions answered. So what's great too is it's not just Trey answering, but all these have gotten lots of great responses just from the community. So
that's great.
Lots of great things going on. All right, but we're going to get to our first one. This one is coming from Kyla Reef. She asks, tips for dressing in layers for a half marathon. My first one will be November 6th. Average high and low is 56/32. Man,
that sounds phenomenal.
If it's cooler, I want to be prepared with the right gear. Normally, I do indoor workouts when it's cold because I don't like the cold /snow/ice. I'm going to say that's like a frowny face / tongue out. I want to take advantage of some sales going on right now. Thanks.
So what to wear when it is cool like that? Is that the right gear?
How do you layer for a race? Because this was a half, so she's gonna get warm just running, and if it gets up to 56, that start line's gonna be a lot different than when she's at mile 12.
No doubt. It kind of my train of thought when it comes to how to dress for a marathon or a half marathon, and I say this often because I believe it. I think you dress for the finish line, and I always try and dress about 15 degrees warmer than it actually is. So yes, could you suffer a little bit early on in the race? Certainly, but I also think there are some ways around it personally. So I'll talk some general ideas about maybe what to wear. I'm sure there was probably a lot of feedback on this already, but I am really big into thrift stores and really big into throwaway clothing. Yeah. So because I usually don't wear a whole lot of extra clothing during the race, I usually discard as I go. So I take advantage of garbage bags. Yes, I'm the guy. I wear garbage bags before the race. The thing about a substance like that is not only does it work as like a windbreaker, but it keeps it keeps kind of that keeps a lot of stuff off your skin, and so it's got that insulating effect that is really good. Like I said, I have usually dressed for less than $5 for a race start. That's typically what I do. I go to a thrift store and I get me a t-shirt, get me some sweatpants, and I'm good to go. But just some typical things that I would look for. If you go to the expo, a lot of expos will have clothing and they'll have throwaway stuff as well. So you can usually find like those $1 gloves. So if you think your hands are going to be cold before the race, they usually think something like $1. You know, they're
and
not
sometimes
much
they give
to
them away. Like folks will give away like gloves in the expo just for you to wear because they know folks are throwing them on the ground.
They will. So other than that, the things I would look for, I'm sure this has been said, but you know, layers I think is really smart. Don't wear anything really thick at all. Just I tell you something that's a go-to for me during a training run. I'll a lot of times wear a long sleeve shirt and then a short sleeves over the top of it. So that way it's not overbearing for me. So especially when it's like in the 30s, that's usually pretty good for me. In fact, I'm usually getting pretty warm at the end of the race. But I would take care of your extremities. That's the big part. Yeah. So ears, head's more important for me than it is for you, I'm sure, Kayla. But and then also your toes. Those are the things I would watch out for the most. And trust me, if you can make it through the first couple miles, you will be thankful at about mile 6 or 7. But definitely go very, very thin layers is what I would do. And again, don't discount the throwaway clothing and anything you can get from a thrift store. Find some good sales. Those are the kind of things I would certainly go after. So.
That's good. And I don't know when I heard this, but the first half I did, folks were wearing trash bags. It was in February, and it's amazing. So just get a trash bag.
They're fantastic.
And just put it over you, and then you just throw it on the ground.
That's what I do.
It's pretty amazing. So.
Yeah. But hey, throw it off to the side, knuckleheads. Okay?
Yes, definitely do that.
I actually have a friend of mine who broke his ankle at the Disney Marathon because of a trash bag.
So. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
So watch out for flying trash bags. All right, we've got another question. This one's a little bit longer. This one's coming from Russell Gump Forrest. And look, our faces are...
wow.
There we are.
Can I look around it?
All right, so he says, I went to a running store today, and I finally got fitted for some running shoes. Walked out with 2 pairs, and they had me on a treadmill. It was noticed that I have some issues with not lifting my knees high enough, which may be causing form issues. So here's the question. Does anyone have some tips on some exercises to try to build up strength and lift? Squat jumps, box jumps, and box steps are the ones I've been thinking will help, but willing to listen to any advice. I've only recently started a core routine that I'm trying to do every second day, plus some hip flexor drills, and I've got to try and help my runner's knee. And they say, his last question got answered from us. And so he also gave us some more details. He says that he's been running for 3 years, started picking up the last 12 months, done 2 21-kilometer race.
Marathon.
Yep, at 1:33 and a 5K at 19:30. And he's running 4 to 5 times a fortnight, which that's an amazing word, fortnight. So every other, due to reduced winter daylight. So goals are to drop the 21.1 down to the lower 80-minute region, not break any further, and get the 5K closer to 8:50. So he's trying to speed up, and he's got some actual shoes now, but he doesn't think his knees are coming up high enough. So what are your thoughts?
It's a hip issue. It's really not a knee issue. It's a hip issue.
Yeah.
I think you're lacking some strength in your hips is what it looks like to me. This is not even, and I think you're right on the money with some of the drills. I think a lot of things that you can do to help your hip are going to be kind of before your runs and after your runs. That's where I would put some concentration. So think of things that would force yourself to have good hip stability, and that would have good hip movement. So the thing I would be careful of, you want to make sure in any of these exercises you don't overstride. So a lot of people, a lot of times when they're trying to correct a form issue, will try and overcorrect it. Don't overcorrect it either. And I would focus on that hip. So a couple of things. I would start kind of before and after your runs. Maybe not before. I would after. After your runs, I would challenge you to do probably 4 to 6 of these. I always do this when I'm on the track. So I do usually do it once a week because I usually go to the track once a week. But to finish off your workout, I would go to the track and I would do 4 to 6 100-meter intervals. So look, this is not trying to become Usain Bolt here, okay? But it's very hard, and it's trying to think and run like a sprinter. So you want to run from your rear end. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what you're trying to force. You're trying to force hip strength, because if you, I'm not trying to be funny, but if you go look at a marathon runner and go look at a sprinter and go look at their below the waist, obviously there's a difference.
Yeah.
Very, very great strength in the hips, in the quads, in the glutes. They have tremendous strength, and that's what you're wanting to access. The other things that I would concentrate on, and this is good before and after your run, I would certainly do some of like the like skipping. Skipping is really good for you. I do that before speed work at the track as well. High knees, all of that's good for you. Stadium steps, those things like that are good for you. So I think drills like that are going to be good. Trying to remember I saw this, and I can't remember if it was on Runners Connect or Strength Running, but there are some really good like hip strengthening exercises. I don't think you have to do them every day, but I think if you can do some of these exercises once a week, I think that would help. But to me, in my opinion, it sounds more like a hip weakness than anything. Yeah. If you build up the hip strength, that makes it easier for you to pull up that knee. And so some of those drills will absolutely help you in building up that strength, because in reality as a distance runner, you're not really engaging your hips and your glutes as much as you probably should. So some of these exercises, and again, I would probably do those 100-meter sprints. I probably do them once or twice a week at most. You don't have to do them every day, but that will absolutely, you'll be able to feel it on those 100 meters. You will absolutely engage those hips. You're going to take longer strides, and you will force those hips and glutes to activate. So just my thoughts.
That's good. So glad you got some free shoes, and not free shoes, but you got some shoes.
2 pairs.
And 2 pairs. And Russell, we'd love to see what they look like. So post them in the group and let us know. All right. So moving right along. This one's coming in from John Henry, who's also asked a couple questions before. He said, when you are doing track workouts, say 400s or 800s, how many should you do? I hear 10 is the max. Plus, when you're into the workout, when do you know if you should slow down or speed up during the workout? Wait till rep 3 or 4. Should the pace be at 5K, 10K pace, or another pace? How do you know which one to do? Should you say do 20 reps ever? So how do you figure out track workouts? And also, we had that fall to the ground. So you don't want to fall to the ground and get hurt doing track workouts.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah. So how do you keep from doing that?
This digs into coaching philosophy a little bit, but let me kind of break down my coaching philosophy and how I utilize speed work a little bit. So you have several kinds of runs. You have your easy runs, which your easy running, easy/long runs typically make up about 70 to 75% of your weekly mileage. Yeah. So this is going to drill into that speed work a little bit. So just think about that. Most of that effort's going to be at an easy run, okay? Then you have threshold running. Well, what is threshold running? Well, a lot of people call threshold running tempo runs. That typically is going to make up another portion of your week. Tempo running is comfortably hard. So it's probably something that you're going to do 30 to 40 minutes. You could potentially maximum do a threshold run up to 60 minutes. But that is comfortably hard is what it is. Okay. Then when it comes to other work you're going to do, being a guy who loves Dr. Jack Daniels, I'll kind of break it down in ways that he does. He loves to talk about it in intervals and repeats. Intervals are bite-sized chunks of work. So that typically ranges from 3 to 5 minutes with short bits of rest in between. Okay, so that typically is going to be where your 800s are going to be a lot of times, where your 1,000 meter repeats are going to be. That's typically where those are. And that typically is hard work. It is hard, and it's going to have short rest in between. Then you're going to have something else, which are typically your repeats. Repeats are typically 200s, 400s, maybe 600s, depending upon your pace. And those are going to be very hard, and they're going to have longer rest in between them. Mm-hmm. So you could be looking at a 2-minute effort with a longer rest in between. So here's what when you're doing a workout like this, here's what you're after is you're trying to, when it comes to stuff at the track, you're trying to increase your VO2 max. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Yep. So
here's the thing. If you go out there on like your 800, you need to know what your VO2 max is. Is your VO2 max, John, is it a 7-minute mile? Is that what it is, or is it a 6-minute mile? Because here's what I can tell you. It's not going to do you any good if your I don't know what your VO2 max is, but let's say your VO2 max.
How would you determine your VO2 max for those that might be listening?
There are some calculators out there to help determine it, but here's what I can tell you. You can do a test. A VO2 max is typically what you can run for no longer than about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay. So if you want to go out there and rock it for 10 to 12 minutes, you can easily figure that out.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So is it a pace? Is that what is a VO2 max pace?
Yes. Okay. And a running calculator can help determine that some.
Based off like PRs?
Yeah. And it can vary. It's going to vary. And here's how it's going to vary is because, and you can make it get better. And here's how you can make it get better. But here's how you can make it get worse. You can make it get better by saying, if your VO2 max is a 7-minute mile, if you go out and test it, or if you go use a calculator and determine your VO2 max pace is a 7-minute mile pace, okay? This is where I want to get into where should I stay. In my mind, I want to run every single one of these. This is me. This is my coaching philosophy. I want to run every one of those at my VO2 max. Mm-hmm. Here's the reason why. The longer I can get and ramp up, it usually takes you about 90 seconds to get to your VO2 max with your heart rate. The longer you run there, the more efficient you can run at your VO2 max, which gives you the ability to run faster and become more efficient. Yeah. Here's what doesn't help you. If your VO2 max is a 7-minute mile pace and you run 6:30, you're anaerobic. Mm-hmm. You've run faster, but you're not becoming more efficient. Right. You've just run faster. It doesn't help you as a runner. You can go out there and try that. And here's the problem, just like you probably experienced, John, is when you go out there and do that, you can hold it for a couple of times. Then eventually you're going to be like, now you're going to go from what your VO2 max needs to be at 7. You may start running them at 7:15 or 7:20. Yep. So you've gone anaerobic for the first few, and now you're not even hitting your VO2 max for the next. That's the reason. Could I argue that, hey, could you do 7:05, 7:05, and then start picking it up? You could, but I still believe I want to run as close to my VO2 max as possible every single time. I want to be consistent every single time, because sprinting and going faster than your VO2 max is not going to help you become more efficient. So let me just help you as a runner. The reason VO2 max is so important, your VO2 max is how oxygen is utilized in your bloodstream. So your heart is trying to pump oxygenated blood, and now your muscles are trying to use that good blood. And so as you run your VO2 max, it is going to get more and more efficient with utilizing and running at VO2 max. So that's going to make you a better runner. So that's what I say, in my opinion. I think that is what you're shooting for. So if you're wondering, if you're wanting to know a lot of these, I would say if you're questioning where these are at, especially if you're looking at the 400 range, that's typically faster, just faster than 5K pace. And the same thing for 800s, it's typically close to 5K pace or roundabout. But the other thing I would say, there's going to be a law of diminishing returns when you start doing too many. And I think it depends on what you're training for as well. Because if you're training for a half marathon, a VO2 max workout is not going to help you very much. If you're training for a 5K, this is the most critical workout you can do.
Yeah.
If you're training for a 10K or a half marathon, it's beneficial, but it's not the best thing for you. If you're training for a marathon, it's going to help you because it can help work on your form. It'll help with, just kind of your overall leg turnover. But if you're training for a 5K, there's not a better workout than working on your VO2 max. Period.
It's good.
Does any of that make sense that I just said?
It does.
Okay. John, if you have any questions on that, we'll love any other thoughts or feedback you have on that. So
yeah. Sweet. Well, we've got, let's see, 2 more questions left. And this one is coming in from Gregory. So somewhat silly question, and this one's funny. Has anyone ever flown with tailwind powder in your carry-on? Did you have issues with it at a security checkpoint? Because it apparently looks like drugs. Have you ever gotten caught? And in the comments later, he didn't get in trouble. He flew totally fine.
Yeah.
But have you ever had people look at you weird for anything weird you brought on a plane for running?
The only thing I've ever had like strange looks at are like all of my wires for my gadgets.
Yes.
Because, I mean, all of us know by the time you throw in every gadget that we have as runners, and then all of a sudden that goes through, they're like, how come you have a bag of like all these wires? So yeah, I have had them thumb through a bag full of just like nothing but wires and watches.
But no powders.
No powders.
Weird powders.
Powder. So you know what? Usually that's an interesting question. I usually utilize expos for a lot of my stuff, which almost got me in trouble at the Disney Marathon. In fact, I had a friend. Oh, you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going off on a rabbit trail. So I was expecting to get my hydration at the expo, and they didn't have it. So I had a friend of mine buy it for me and then bring it to me at a location. And so we were exchanging money and exchanging bags.
That's
and he was
funny.
like, I feel like a drug dealer. I'm like, well, this is what you do when you run. You have to have your hydration, right?
That's really funny.
So yeah, that's where you should, make sure that the expo actually has what you use, because I have almost got burned on that before. So,
or bring it with you, and it's safe to fly. So yeah, Tailwind is great too, and we've had them on the podcast before. All right, our last question. And this one is also coming from John. He actually put this in last minute, seeing if we could include it as a bonus question. So here's your bonus. How do you know if you're peaking too soon? Like, say you're running a pace for your tempos or your track workouts, then all of a sudden you start going backwards in your times that you can hit. So it's an indicator that you have peaked and need a rest period. Part 2, how does a rest period work? How long is it? What should you do during this? So much for taking time. Thank you.
Do you think he means rest period like overall strategy or during a workout?
I would think during a workout, because it sounds like he's building up. No, I would say overall strategy. So it sounds like he's building up for a race. And because I've had this kind of hit too, where like it feels like you're pushing in more, but then you're just getting slower. So does that mean, is that just an indicator that's just part of the process, or maybe you need to back off and let your legs rest?
Just what you said.
Okay.
Here's the thing, and this isn't, and I know we've talked about this and teased about this, and maybe we even do, this may be the thing that we do a special podcast on how to do your season. I think that's probably not a bad idea as we go into next year, is because John, I think you do want to handpick your races, because, and John, I think this goes back to kind of relates to your other question, is what do you start doing when you go backwards a little bit? Because in reality is you do want to peak. It's like right this very second, there are athletes going to Rio who are starting to get ready to peak because they want to peak for that. And so I think the same thing. I actually have friends of mine, and I just keep my mouth shut because they don't ask for advice. They do track workout 52 weeks of the year.
Oh, wow.
You don't do track workout 52 weeks of the year. Just like you're peaking for a race, you want to fine tune as you get closer. So it's the same thing. When let's say we look at a 6-month training cycle, John. So you have 6 months to get ready for a race. Probably early on in that, we're going to, during the base training, we're going to do stuff like fartleks. We're going to do stuff like hill work. We're going to do a lot of long, easy runs because we're going to build that foundation. Once we get that foundation built, then, hey, we're going to start working your tail off then. There's no doubt about it. Now we're going to start. Why? Because I know we've built a solid enough foundation to be able to start working on. However, having said that, I'm not going to get race specific yet. We won't get race specific until we get closer to your race. So you would notice, like if you were training for, let's just say you were training for a marathon, okay? Then I'm not going to do anything marathon specific until probably the last 8 weeks or so.
Yeah.
We'll probably do fartlek stuff early on. We'll probably do some 5K stuff, 10K stuff. And then as we get closer to the race, now we get to race specific, because it's just like going to the gym. Each time you go to the gym, you don't do the same chest press every single time with the same reps, the same sets. Why? Because your muscles are getting used to it. And there's no doubt, if you do the same tempo run, the same track workouts, that I know I have friends, and when they do it each and every week, and I know some of them are going anaerobic on their workouts. And so they may be crushing some of these times, and their race times are actually getting worse because they're not becoming more efficient as runners. And that's where I say you definitely need to mix it up and back it off. And honestly, in like a marathon training program, and John, I don't know that you're training for a marathon or a half marathon, but I would only go to the track every 3 or 4 weeks. I wouldn't go to the track every week. There's no way, because there's nothing I can do there to help me every single week. That's where I would mix it up. But I do think you just want to take a look at your training platform and say, hey, what does this fall look like for me? What's the A race? And let me back it off for a minute, and let me make sure I've got a great foundation built for my A race. And now, hey, John, as we get very specifically close to that A race, now we're going to start laying down a mountain of work that is very specific to the 5K, the 10K, the half, whatever you're training for. It's gonna hurt, and we're gonna work hard because we've laid the foundation to make sure we can work hard. That's what all of that's for. And now as we get close to the race, now we're going to get specific. It's like I was watching some of the Olympians the other day. Some were like, yeah, I haven't done any speed work whatsoever. And they're out there getting ready to do their 200-meter race. They're like, I don't do speed work until we get closer.
Right.
What they're saying is, I don't do this specific work until I get close, because that's when I want to peak. So it's the same thing when you're training for a race. If you do specific stuff too early, it's going to wear you out. You're not going to reap the benefits. You want to wait till later to get race specific.
That's good. I have ready for an example that has nothing to do with running.
Absolutely.
All right, so this is in the office.
Okay.
So I did this earlier. So I'm going to hold it up so you guys can kind of see. I recently got a lathe. I like doing woodworking stuff. So this is a little spinner guy. I've been learning how to use it. So you have to get really sharp chisels. But usually when you get wood and you lathe it down, or you cut it down, it's like a square block. Mm-hmm. And so you use this it's like a bigger chisel, but it lets you chisel it down. Yeah. And so, but then at the very end, you sand it and you get like a really sharp chisel to help you get it like really smooth like that. But if I had used that super sharp chisel at the beginning, I would have broken the chisel. And so the same idea, like you use different techniques as you get further along in the process. So it's almost like your speed work is that super fine cut that you can't do when you need to rough something out. So you're building out, and it's just a ton of almost like junk miles. You're just getting the miles into your legs. Yep. And then at the end, you're really fine tuning it with like a razor sharp something. But if you go with that razor, you're going to break the razor, or you're going to break the legs.
Because you can't PR every race. Right. So you have to pick your poison.
Yep.
And you have to, you just have to understand. You have to have the discipline to know when to back it off. And you're exactly right. If you want to race every week, then just know that, it's going to be tough to race every week. And so I think it's a great question, John. We'd love to hear how it goes for you. Let us know exactly what you're training for. We'd love to dig into that a little bit more with you. So.
That's good. Well, guys, that is our last question for this week. As always, if you have questions, just drop them in our Facebook group feed. Not only will you get the wise, sage advice of Coach Trey, but you're going to get a lot of great comments from our community as well. And a lot of folks learn from each other, which is what we're trying to create here at the Connect Run Club. And before we go, we always like to do a fun Q&A, not Q&A, but a fun survey to our community each week on almost like a would you rather question. So Trey, I'm going to ask you our would you rather, and you let me know. And now the settings on Facebook, I always forget. I tried to just do 2 would you rather, so you got to pick which one you would rather. But sometimes you can leave it where folks can submit their own. And so folks didn't want to pick, and they just picked their own. They put their own in there. But anyway, so I'll give you all of the 4 options. So would you rather spend your running money on running shoes, race entries, running gadgets, and some people put all of the above, but don't do all of the above because that defeats the purpose.
So race entry, shoes, or gadgets. You know, with the cost of race entries these days, it's really hard to pass that up. However, I can be happy just running, and I need so many shoes. I think I'm going to go running shoes.
Would you? Okay, running shoes. I put gadgets.
You put gadgets. I would expect that.
All right, let's do it this way.
Okay.
All right, so say we'll go high.
All right.
$200.
Okay.
You can get a $200 race entry, $200 running watch, or $200 running shoes. What would you get?
Well, I've never owned $200 running shoes, but I have owned about 4 pairs that costed me about $200. So I'm a maximizer when it comes to that. I'd probably go race entry.
Race entry.
I'd probably go race entry.
$200 can go a pretty good way for a nice half marathon or marathon.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to run the Disney races, it's going to be about $200. If you're going to run rock and roll, it's probably about half that price.
Yeah.
But or if you're going to like New York's like $265 or something like that. It's something crazy. So I mean, there are some expensive races out there. I mean, there's some expensive ultras out there. I've looked at some of those. I mean, there are some $300 and $400 ultra marathons out there. So you guys, one time I looked into doing a stage race. You ready for this one?
Like a Ragnar stage?
No, like multi-day race.
Okay.
Like 20 miles this day, 30 miles the next day. It's going to be like $1,800. And I was like,
that's too much.
I think I'm out.
Yeah, that's way too much.
$1,800 is too much for me.
It's too expensive.
No.
Well, you want to know what race doesn't cost a lot of money?
What race doesn't cost a lot of money?
It's our Chick-fil-A half marathon in April. We actually we don't plug it a lot on the podcast because we know you guys are kind of all over the world listening. But if you are in Georgia or close to Athens, Georgia, we do a race here. It's on April 1st. It's not April Fool's, and we're saying it because we actually had registration go open on Tuesday of this week.
We did.
And if you guys are registering before October, you can get for $50. And if you guys used the promo code, let's just make it up, Connect Run Club, you can save $10 off. So
he just gave you money.
Yeah, so you can run in our race for $40, which is pretty cheap for a half, and it's a really fun half. You get probably $40 in food from Chick-fil-A at the end. So
potentially he's going to give you a pair of shoes in the next couple of weeks, somebody.
Yeah,
and you could get race for what, $40?
So there you go. Would you rather? You pick both. So
get both.
But for real, Connect Run Club, use that as a promo code. You'll save $10, and help me remember to set that up when we get off this. So I need to do that.